They're going to stay.
Those will stay.
And here we have Parker. Parker, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Good.
And Parker's an ambassador.
Which of you are the ambassadors? Probably Nicole and Brooklyn. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know Brooklyn.
So Nicole and Brooklyn will
Okay, good.
learn a lot about exploring majors and academic mapping, but if there are any technical problems that anyone's having, or they'll monitor the chat, which there's two of us, so probably not quite as much of a problem as in a one speaker type event. So you'll get a break and have to map your major. Okay, let's see, it's 2:01. Let me start sharing my screen.
I was with Mac on Sunday. We had a group meeting and he said he waits 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay.
I don't know.
We can be like Mac Ivy.
The magic number. Nikki, you're still pre-med, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen you. Good to see you.
Yeah, I was supposed to be there Sunday, but I had something come up at home, so.
That's okay. We'll get that information out to you, so don't worry.
All right, so we will start at 2:03. Is that right, Ms. Moore?
Whatever.
Whatever?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Maggie.
Anybody have anything to talk about for 1 minute?
For those of you who are here to learn about academic mapping, if you wouldn't mind putting your student, you can't do that. If you would just list, if you are truly exploring, if you would write what college you're in, that would be helpful, and your name. So your name, exploring, and what college that you're in. Because you can be exploring in any college. Typically, students are in Fulbright.
And Monica, do you want to do the introduction, or do you want me to do it? For the video.
Oh, I can do it. And then you
Okay.
can try. You tell me. I can try it. Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Monica Moore and I work in the Honors College and in what we call the Futures Hub. Now, my colleague is with us today, Louise Hancox, and we're gonna talk to you about we're gonna start with the big picture. What are some of the things that you need to engage in? What activities? What should you be reflecting on when you think about choosing a major that's right for you? There are so many options, and we want to support you in that exploration process. I can tell you that I've met so many students who feel like they need to know the exact answer right from the very start. And I think there are some students out there who go from point A to point B and they do not veer from that. But those students who aren't quite sure, we think that here, when you're in college, you need to take full advantage of the very many opportunities that you have available, and that includes really surveying all of the classes that we offer, looking at the majors, and then thinking ahead, which is what Louise will talk to you about, thinking about, well, what comes next? And we don't want that to be overwhelming, because if you're a freshman, you're just getting started, but we think your life will feel more meaningful if you think now ahead and use the resources that we're going to share. So Louise will start with some of those big picture things, how you step back and collect your thoughts about what are possibilities for you. And then I'm going to talk about how do you do some academic mapping, hopefully at a very basic level, for exploring majors, it's sort of like, let's just think about the spring semester, what comes next. And I'll also give you some general advice about how to map everything out once you've narrowed it down. And we'll have some more advanced workshops in the future that you might want to attend as things get more concrete in your mind. So that's the introduction. Welcome, everybody.
Miss Moore.
You're welcome.
Okay, so college is a journey, right? And some of you may be exploring, you might change your majors, you might add a minor, you might drop a minor. 80% of college students change their majors. Others might add, as I suggest, a major or a minor. We want you to be happy with your academic path, but we want you to be smart about it, right? We don't want you to invest a lot of money, for example, in the wrong direction or change so many times. What we want you to do is consider the 5 steps to exploring majors and careers. And I'll go over these. We want you to think about looking at some assessments. We want you to lightly explore careers, right? This is not a deep dive into careers, but do you like these things or not? And show you where the resources are that you can find this information. Look at some specific jobs in these careers. And then once you have some good ideas for your major, use the tools within programs like UA Connect to map out your academic plan. Okay, so step 1, these major and career assessments are available to you. A really good one is My Majors, and you can see that I did it. There's my major assessment. I did it yesterday, and it has some recommended majors for me, including social work, history, political science. And I put in, and when I did my undergraduate, I was a psychology major. So I put in that I'm a psychology major, and it came out with history. Well, it turns out later in life, I got a history PhD. So it did a good job on me that way. And there are other inventories that are through the Career Center, like the 4 listed here. And if you navigate to career.uark.edu, you can take these assessments. A couple of them cost some money. They cost $10, and a couple of them are free. The ones, the strong interest inventory is recommended as one of the best of these 4. And then what's good about it is you meet with a career counselor at the Career Center to discuss the results. So these are some assessment tools, and you can sort of play around with these. Step 2 would be to explore careers by major as well. And this, again, the Career Center has some excellent resources for this. If you navigate again to career.uark.edu, you can not only pull up the self-assessments, but you can explore majors and degree programs. And what does that look like? It looks like this. These are 2 examples. If I'd have searched on history from their site, look at all those tabs that you can click on, right? What is history? Related careers, typical employers of history majors, job and intern search links. Now, these are great resources, even if you know what your major is, right? Even if you know, I'm a history major. Well, what are you going to do with that? You know, are you going to go on to grad school? Maybe, but what else could you do with it? So these things are really good. They're also good if you want to access internships within that major. You can look around in here and think, does that sound like something, you're not committing to a career, but does that sound like something I would like to be interested in or do? So those those resources are really excellent. Step 3 is to think about the career itself, right? Once, okay, I like the sound of that. Now, there are various tools to research what people in these careers actually do. And what they do, this is important, I think, at various steps along the career ladder, right? So The CEO of a corporation might sound like a great job, but that might take you 20 years to get to, right? You have to look at both the entry-level jobs and the senior level positions. And this first link here, the occupational handbook, it's a good place to start because it also gives sort of, it gives analysis of what areas are growing, right? Like healthcare. This website talks about is projected to grow 15%, right? So it's a growth industry and others may not be. Then it goes through some various basic categories of careers under that umbrella and a little bit of an idea about the pay. Now, we talk about pay. We don't want everybody just to go into a job because of the pay, but you should be conversant in what the pay scale is for various jobs at various points in your career. So that's one really good tool to look at careers. There are others. Indeed.com is a job board. And if you look at the job descriptions of various jobs in various fields, just ask yourself, am I at all interested in doing that, right? Is that something I kind of like? And then you can sort of back into, okay, then that major makes sense to me, right? If you put all these things together. Handshake, I'm going to skip over LinkedIn for a second, but Handshake is the resource that we use here on campus. You each have a profile already set up in Handshake, and you can apply for internships and jobs within Handshake. But you can also do research in Handshake, same sort of research. What do these jobs look like that what are these employers looking like that are advertising to students, right? That are saying they want to employ students. What did these things look like? And LinkedIn, LinkedIn is also great for research. So it's great for a couple of reasons. One, you can, if you look here, I put in the search term museum, right? So if I was a person searching on a career in museums, if I search on museum in LinkedIn, it's going to do a few things. It's going to show me jobs that are appropriate to that search term. It's going to show me people that are associated with that search term and companies associated with that search term. So on the first list, these are people. These are people's profiles that are associated with museum work. And I can see the first one there, Jill Wagar. Well, I don't know her, but I can see that people that I'm connected to on LinkedIn, like Rachel Hutchins and Megan Bollender, are connected with her. I might want to contact Jill and ask for an informational interview about what museum work is like. I could ask my friend Rachel to introduce me to her. I could link to her in LinkedIn, right? So I can look at these things in terms of talking to them, or I can look at just their online profile, right? I can see what these people in these jobs in museums, what their resume looks like, what their education look like, what their major is in most cases, right? Do they have a business degree? Do they have a history degree? Do they have an art history degree? What do they have? And I can just play around in this software and figure those things out and see what's interesting to me. The other thing I can see in LinkedIn are jobs. So this program specialist that you can see here in Florida, I can see that I can see the job description. And on the second page here I'm trying to see this $17 an hour job. I don't know the right and the left in the Zoom thing here. But the pay for that job is $17 an hour. It's an entry-level job, right? But I can see the qualifications. Now this museum job is a sciencey museum job, right? It's not an art history museum job like Crystal Bridges. So that gives me an idea. And it gives me an idea of what an entry-level position is. I found another job that paid more, but it's a senior level job. So I can kind of see the range of income that I might be having in that industry, right? And I can see what education I might need and what the jobs look like. And then I can kind of back into it and say, okay, I would like to do such and such for my major. Once you have some basic comfort level in what you would like, an area that you would like to investigate, then we can get into what Ms. Moore is going to go over, which is academic mapping. What's possible with the classes you already have and what you will do next. You're muted. So I'm going to hand over to Ms. Moore.
Here I am.
And she is going to.
We're still learning the graces of online virtual presentations.
We are doing great.
Okay, so you saw that slide go by really quickly. Today, again, it's about exploring majors. I see in the chat that we have some students, 2 students who know what they want to major in at this point, and they're looking for, is it possible to add a minor to that path? And then it looks like we have Mr. Pham with us, or I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced that right, who really, no, sorry, it's Mr. Williams, who's a pre-med student, and he truly is exploring, it looks like. And so I do want to extend on a little bit about what you just heard in terms of majors. I do talk about this usually as part of this presentation, but you know, there are some majors out there. There are some professions out there where you have to have a specific degree, right? So if you want to build bridges, we want you to have that expertise in whether it's mechanical engineering or civil engineering. There's really no way around that if that's your career goal. So there are some majors that just really make your trajectory very black and white. And then there are other paths where, and I think you'll find this if you start doing the research that we just suggested, which is look for a specific career, and you may be surprised to find that it really didn't necessarily matter what the student majored in, that the job was more general in terms of looking for critical thinking skills, analytical skills, communication skills, which would be writing or reading, speaking as well. So I just want to let you know that. And so a little bit about myself. I do work a lot with students who are on the pre-med track, and I work a lot with Dr. Ivy in the Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences, and we know that med schools are not looking for a specific major. You really do have to plan very carefully so that you're taking the right classes at the right time, that you've got admission requirements checked off. A lot of times there is overlap with an admission requirement course and the prep course that you need to do well on the MCAT, which is the entrance exam. But you can major in English, and we have students who've done that. It's rare, but it would make you unique and stand out as a med school applicant. I also see, so we have Miss Green, who is planning to work for National Geographic. That's pretty awesome. And so it makes a lot of sense to try to find a science minor that would, reflect, that that's the niche that you're wanting to work in within publication. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then we have a computer engineer. And again, you all may change your minds at some point, and that's where academic mapping also comes in handy, because it helps you be versatile in the skills that are required to make changes if they do come about as you progress to graduation. So this first slide, let's get right down into it. What is an academic map? So just I define that map as a planning tool. I haven't memorized what slides come next, but so an academic map, I'm going to show you one of these at the end of this workshop. It will be an example. We will make the template available to all of you if you would like. If you don't already have one, it would just be an option for a template that you can use. But for me, I consider an academic map, it's a planning tool. I find that it's very important because it helps you track visually courses that you have completed. It also gives you a way to draft out courses that you need to take, that you would like to take in future terms. So if you dig in and do it for the next 4 years, I need to go back one, Louise, sorry. If you do it all the way to graduation, it reflects your plans, and it, helps just you make sure that you're on track to graduation. I think I heard Louise say, I mean, I imagine maybe everyone here is on a scholarship. If you have a Pell Grant, even if you're just, if your parents are paying for your education, I don't think there's no one I know who has a money tree. So I feel like academic mapping is just really important so you can make the most of the dollars that you have, and you go as far as you possibly can. And honor students typically can go a bit farther than someone who is not in honors. But this map also helps you anticipate what courses you need to take and when. So on the next slide. So, academic mapping, I've heard from students sometimes when I talk about it, it can be overwhelming. And so I find it to be useful to help you grasp the task at hand. And so the analogy that I use is that an academic map is like a puzzle. And there are some main parts, and there are ways that you put it together. So with your puzzle, you've got the border and those corners and edges. Those are so easy to find usually and to put together. And then you have the center, which includes, the visuals, the imagery, the main colors that help you figure out, piece by piece, how to put your puzzle together. So in the next slide, we get to see, so those puzzle pieces you saw on that slide previously, that's the box cover. That's the visual that if you put all those pieces together, that's what you would come up with. And so on the next slide, now we're kind of making that leap here. So for me, your academic map, anyone's academic map will illustrate a big picture in some ways, that concept anyway, but it's going to be unique. We want it, if possible, to reflect some of the really interesting choices that you make when you can pick and choose classes that become electives or that fall within core requirements, something outside of what the department dictates that you must take to become an expert in your field of study. So it illustrates a big picture of sorts, kind of like that slide we just saw. And then on the next slide, now we kind of have to pull it apart. An academic map differs from puzzles in a few ways. For instance, the puzzle, it's usually mass manufactured. There are many of them, and you have a puzzle maker who provides the big picture for you. Whereas with your academic map, you have a lot of agency and you get to make your own picture. And I think that's the fun part of academic mapping. It becomes unique to you, and hopefully it helps match what you're studying to what you hope to do or become in the future. It also differs, I think we'll see. Okay, so it's a bit more demanding, and I've done puzzles. I'm not a huge fan of puzzles, but I really did enjoy plotting out my undergraduate studies. There's a bit more work involved when you're doing academic mapping. The puzzle maker puts all those pieces in a box. You have it all together. It's super easy. You just dump it out. And I mean, at least you have a model that you can look at to follow. Whereas with your academic map, you have the task at hand is learning, okay, what are these main pieces and where do I go to find them? So that's another difference. That's how these two concepts differ from each other. So on the next slide, so let's just talk about some of this, maybe review for you all. If you're freshmen, I know orientation goes quick if it's not virtual, and I think it might be a bit more of a blur if it is virtual. So if it's a review, hopefully it's beneficial, but for those of you that might not have grasped all of this along the way, I want to talk to you about how do you identify the main parts of your map. So step one is identifying those parts. There are for any student on our campus, the degree is going to be about 120 hours to fulfill a bachelor's degree to earn that. And there are four main parts. The first would be your state minimum core courses. They're sometimes referred to as university core or general education classes. Many times honor students come in and they've satisfied some of these, many of these, depending on what high school you went to, you've satisfied these through either AP credit, your ACT score may make you exempt from Comp 1 and Comp 2, and CLEP credit is another thing that we see very commonly that helps students satisfy those requirements. And then this is something I really want to make sure you're aware of. There are some colleges, for instance, Parker, you're in Fulbright College, and Maggie, you are too. So if you're in the College Scholars, or sometimes referred to as the four-year honors program, you must also look at core classes that are part of your honors curriculum. There might be overlap in what you find in state minimum core, and they might also exceed the number of hours that you need for core, and that's determined by your honors program. So that's the second main part. There's some overlap in state minimum core and honors core. And then you've got your major requirements and what I call supporting courses, which would be any general electives that you have. So those are the four main parts of your academic map. And now I just want to make you aware of where you go to find those pieces. So now we're kind of talking about the little pieces. Where do you go to find those? So there are a lot of different resources out there on our University of Arkansas website. I recommend that you go find every resource that we possibly have available to you. For engineers, they have flow charts. That might be your cup of tea. Sometimes those get a little confusing, but they are a good tool. Many students do use them, but there are other ways to look at what courses are required. I'll back up again to state minimum core. You'll find those in the catalog of studies. And I'll show you a screenshot of that in a minute. You'll find your honors core requirements on your honors program page. Sometimes those will also be located on your College Advising Center websites. And then you also have the degree audit. I hope you all are familiar with that tool. It's very handy. We'll demonstrate it today. There's the catalog. You can find pre-admission requirements, major core requirements, and major electives within that department, and any departmental honors requirements that you have. So you can find those in a few different places: the degree audit, the catalog, and academic department web pages. So on the next slide, I think we have a picture. So you know, the bottom line, this is that list. It's for honors and non-honors. It's sort of a baseline, and it does show you that, you know, the state of Arkansas believes that for you to, you know, have covered the foundation of a bachelor's degree, and it can be situated in a, you know, a liberal arts or, you know, just humanities framework. Everyone has to take Comp 1, or I'm sorry, 6 hours of English, 3 hours of math at least, depending on your major. You may take much more. 8 hours of science, from biological science to physical science, fine arts, humanities, U.S. history, and then social sciences. So that's where you, you know, you can go to this site in the catalog to find this comprehensive list. Those classes that are in red, I don't demonstrate this here, but you can click on those and it'll pull up a course description and the title, so that you can discover, well, what does that class represent? If it's on a check sheet, you don't get sort of that three-dimensional way to click into it to learn a little bit more about what that class would be about. So that's where you find your state minimum core. On the next slide, you will see, the greatest common denominator is what I went with here. So this will apply to Mr. Williams and Ms. Green, Mr. Pham. So I'm sorry I left out the College of Engineering and the visuals here anyway, but for Fulbright, I just wanted to show you that an Advising Center website, your Fulbright Advising Center website houses a check sheet, or the check sheets you would want to reference to see if there's any additional core requirements that you need to complete as part of your four-year honors program. So in this particular instance, the next slide is going to show you the check sheet for a student who is who's pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree. I know you have two different options within honors. This particular student is on option 1. She's chosen option 1. And I didn't point out on the slide with the catalog, hopefully you saw it, but in yellow at the top of that, it said you need 35 hours to satisfy your state minimum core. Well, Fulbright honors, they say our honor students need to reach farther, right? So those core classes are embedded here. Sometimes the list, like the social science list, might not be as broad as what you would see in the catalog, but definitely you have more hours that you must complete if you're doing an honors degree in Fulbright. And so that is why I'm showing you this resource, so that you can reference that and make sure that you're accounting for every requirement that you have. So here you can see on a Bachelor of Science option 1 track, it's a matter of 56 to 65 hours. Again, when you start thinking about your AP credit, some of those will already be satisfied, and that just means you get to do more than the average bear. Because you have accumulated those hours before you even get to campus. And that's where you get to add in your extra minors or maybe another major down the road. But this is another resource that I'd like to make sure you're aware of, so that you can, if you spread it out in the material world with paper, or if you pull it up online, make sure you have this open in a tab as well. So the next slide is going to, so, you know, again, we advertise this session as an academic mapping instruction for anyone who's exploring. And so my advice is, you know, if you truly are exploring, you don't know what your major is just yet, I would just say right now, take it one step at a time. Focus on spring 2021. Priority registration is in November. It's coming up. When you see your advisor, they'll really appreciate that you've thought ahead and have some ideas about what classes you would like to take. I'm going to pause here and say, I can show you this big picture here, but academic advisors in your college, they often are privy to information that I just am not. They may know of some special classes that are offered in an academic department. That's their specialty. And they really do want to help you audit as you go along the way to make sure that you are completing every graduation requirement when it, you know, so we can confer your degree when you're planning on that. So we're here to give you the tools so that you're prepared, and maybe those conversations with your advisor can go deeper, can be richer, and not just about take this class, take this class, take this class, because you're going to go in prepared to have a deeper conversation. So with exploring majors, my advice is that you really stick with state minimum core. If you have room for electives, these are the ways that you can explore. Even though the state demands that you take certain classes in certain fields, you have some playroom. You have the ability to play. And if you can do it at all, use those classes to explore fields of study. And so what, you know, so you can, I just showed you where you find some of those classes. Now I want to get into how do you play around with ideas that you have. Once you've gone through the tasks that Louise mentioned earlier in the session, if you've narrowed it down, you have the ability to go into the degree audit tool and run what we call a what if degree audit. And this is, I think, why I think this will be really handy for anyone who's searching for a minor. So on the next, well, so the next screen I think says degree audit demo, and oh, no, it doesn't. So we'll look at that in a minute, but another thing I want you to keep in mind, and this is kind of going back to that puzzle, you know, when the puzzle is your task at hand, you've got those corners and edges, and usually folks start there because that's the easy place to start. So we talk about core classes. That's one easy way to figure out what to do first and then next. But there are other things to keep in mind, like prerequisites and co-requisites, and also information about when classes are typically offered. So let's say you find a really cool class. Well, let's say an honors signature seminar like bad medicine that is taught. I think it's going to be pretty regularly taught by Dr. Trish Starks, but she won't offer it every single semester, I don't believe. And so to plan for that class, it's important to make note of when it is typically offered. And you can find that information when you look at course descriptions in the catalog and also in the degree audit. So we'll show you both of that. We'll demonstrate both of those. So I think the next screen might be the degree audit. Yes. So now Ms. Hancock, she's actually a doctor. We'll call her Dr. Hancock. She's going to pull up, we're gonna demo the degree audit for you. I think this is so handy, and it really helps you kind of to play around and see what's possible. And also it'll pull in anything that you have completed to this point. And so our demo here is a student who's on a biology BS degree, and she has a few minors, but anyone can run a what if, and we're gonna just take this opportunity to I don't care what if you run. We did chemical engineering, so let's go ahead and do that. Because if you're thinking about changing from one college to the next, you can just sort of see, what would that look like? How hard would that be? You know, am I too far along to really complete all of those requirements before my money runs out? So the what if is at the bottom. So there are several fields you have to click through. So we're going to go to the College of Engineering, and then the degree. So that's a BS in chemical engineering. So every possibility will be in the drop-down list. And then where it says select, okay, so sometimes this can be confusing to students. Sometimes it'll say 2011. I saw on that drop-down list, you want to choose the most recent date. That's just the last time that the department made any changes to their degree plan. They may have added an extra course. So then you run the report. And so there's a key at the top where you see a green check mark completed, yellow enrolled, which is a course you have in progress. And then next it says, okay, incomplete. Oh, the star is planned. Y'all have a schedule planner in the degree audit or in UA Connect. I'm not as familiar with that, but you actually can plan your courses outside of what we're advising you today, outside of the template that I made in Excel, but you can play around with that too, and it would show what classes you have planned for, incomplete and unmet. So we're going to scroll down. You'll actually see that even though the student was on a biology major degree plan, in section 2, chemical engineering students have to take a total of 42 hours in math and science. And this student actually has completed a good number of those requirements. There's a foundation of science and math you need as a chemical engineer, and that's easy to explain here. And she's pre-med. The student actually is pre-med, so there's overlap there. And then I do just want to show you to drill down. Let's look at the technical electives, Louise, because that's where students, okay, so in section 4, so chemical engineers do have some freedom to play around with some electives. And so for you to figure out what that means, what are those options, you can go to that section where it says electives, and then you can click on requirement details. And this is in any audit. So when you click there, what happens is that you pull up a list of all courses that would be available to you to choose from to help you satisfy those technical electives. So this is the only place I know of that you can go to really narrow down the options. This is a huge list. You know, if you were, I don't know, it would be a shorter list of electives for, you know, if we were in an actual major like biology, they have some electives that they can take at the 3,000 and 4,000 level. So this is pretty expansive here, but we'll also show you while we're here, the course description, or I'm sorry, the course title is there, and yeah, anything, any of those. If you click on that, you're gonna get a course description. And I know that's really small. We just want to show you that it's here and you can play around with it when you get started on your academic map. But The typically offered information is there. It's in that second section where it says enrollment information in red. So this class is typically offered in the spring. That can vary. That's why your academic advisor, your faculty advisor is a really important resource. And then you get a course description and any prerequisite, and I can see that says you need departmental consent to take this particular class. So that's a not as common of a prerequisite. A lot of times, you know, there's a course. I'll show you a partial academic map at the end, and I can give you an example of something more common when you think about progressing through prerequisites. But does anyone have any questions about what we just demonstrated? So, okay, so I think we can go back to the PowerPoint slide show, or slideshow. And, but so anyone who's looking for a major, anyone who is looking for a good, or a minor, I'm sorry, to add to a major they've already declared, or look for a minor, that's a way for you to explore. The other resource that I wanted to let you know about is in the catalog of studies. There's a way for you to get to that comprehensive list of all the majors that we offer. So if you do the My Majors, if you work through that tool and it narrows down 4 to 5 majors for you, now you can go to the programs of study section in the catalog and find that major and go click on a link to the department. I know I'm taking a lot of time, so we will make this slideshow available and you can visit that yourself. But just know that I just hope what you do is take the time to see that there are majors out there that you just may never have thought of. You just didn't have access, you were not aware. So we're wanting to raise your awareness, raise your consciousness about what we offer and what is possible at the University of Arkansas. So the next slide is, you know, for honors student, really any student, but another way, this is where, you know, I'm encouraging you to take advantage of courses that can help you satisfy more than one requirement at a time. That just means you can do more by, you know, just taking fun electives, creating a minor or another major. So I've given you 2 examples. If you were, for instance, it's also a good way to explore. If you wanted to explore psychology as a major, general psychology is on that state minimum core list as an option. And general psychology is also a requirement for psychology majors. So there you have one class that satisfies 2 requirements. If you put an H on the end, general psychology honors, then you've also been able to check off your honors requirement if you're in Fulbright. Here's another one. This is for anyone in the Walton College of Business. There are pre-business core classes students have to work through. Macroeconomics is one, and that is also on the social science list of the state minimum core options. So these are just 2 pretty simple examples of how you can take one class to satisfy more than one requirement. And there are a lot of students who like to do that. And, you know, the student who did the medical humanities minor, we had her degree audit up, and I mean, she's got one class for 3 different requirements. It might be a biology class, an honors colloquium, and also medical humanities. So it's just fun to play. And that's what I think I mean. I know it's what I mean when it's your big picture. It gets to be unique. It fits you. It's not going to look like anybody else's. So we want you to embrace your individuality while you're here, and that's what academic mapping, I think, allows you to do optimally. So on the next slide, we've got, you know, for if you're a freshman, you're still exploring, maybe even a sophomore. I don't know that world language courses are always on the front of people's minds when they come for orientation. But if world language is part of your degree plan and you have not started that, and you're kind of looking for, okay, I want to take a class that's meaningful, haven't decided on my major, I'm not ready to take an elective and commit to that. I want the course to be valuable and meaningful at this time. I think world language is really good. But I also think if you're going to lean toward an elective, choose those that really pique your curiosity, that could end up becoming a minor requirement, but also just something interesting that you can talk to an employer about if they see it on your transcript or a med school admission committee. Those are the things that give you something interesting to talk about. We want you all to be fleshing out the interest value that we know you come to the university with. And so the last thing is we'll do some more of this type of mapping when you're ready to say, I want to choose majors that are housed in 2 separate colleges. I want to plan for study abroad. That can be pretty sophisticated mapping. It takes a little more time to figure out when you're going to go and how to make that coursework satisfy your degree requirements. So we'll keep the conversation going. If you have, let's say you get started on academic mapping and you hit a stumbling block, if you need help, I'm available to work you through that and talk about it. And I think Louise and I are both here, if you want to have conversations just about what's the right path for me. I'm more of an expert in careers in medicine and particularly pre-med, but I work with exploring majors. I've done it at different times in my life. So the next slide, it's my last slide, is just an example of, it's a partial example of a map for the biology student that we were looking at earlier. And the classes in orange, those represent the overlap between the state minimum core requirements and her honors hour requirements that are also on the core check sheet. I haven't really featured this here, but prerequisites are represented on this map as well. So University Chem 1 is required before University Chem 2. That's why she put those in those 2 places on her map. Organic Chem 1 requires University Chem 2 before that. And so I also, those prerequisites, those make things easy when you think about, okay, I have this blank template. I don't know where to begin. Those prerequisites oftentimes help you fill in details in an easy way that you don't have to think a whole lot about. And that's like your corners and your borders. Use those core classes to explore, take advantage of the opportunities, the resources that we have on our campus to play around and make a really interesting picture that will carry you into the future in really fun, rich ways, I think. So we'll take questions if there are any. Ms. Hancock, Dr. Hancock, if you think I left anything out, please chime in.
No, I think it's great. It's sort of super fascinating, how complicated it can get, but how it would be worthwhile to map this all out, right? Because you want to make sure you're being efficient in the classes that you take so that you can explore with the rest of your schedule. So I think it's really interesting.
Yes, and so I didn't really say this, both putting together a puzzle and doing this academic map, it takes time. You're not going to do it all in one night. I want you to see it as fun, but it's a process. And we do have some modules and a video that will be forthcoming. It will be accessible to you all and really any student who wants to watch. But the modules it is just a review of what I said. It might be a little more detailed, but it is complex. And so you do want to take it one step at a time. And I think those resources will be handy also to help you make this feel like it's not so overwhelming, because it can be. It really can be, especially if you're at the very beginning. But don't feel like you have to know the answers all at once. You don't have to know all the answers right now. We hope you don't. It's a journey. So.
Yeah, and it's about knowing where the resources are, right? Where to look in UA Connect, where to look on the website, things like that. And then you can do it at your leisure or not do it, right? I mean, you can just kind of go to your advising appointment year on year and hope for the best, right? But this really, you're taking control of your program, which I like, and allowing yourself more room for exploration. So should we open it up for questions of any kind?
If anybody has any questions or comments or questions.
I have a
Hopefully.
question.
Okay, sure.
So I am, still exploring Fulbright or whatever, but I'm on the pre-med track. And so some of the majors that I'm considering, like some of them are bachelors of science and then some of them are bachelors of arts. So I was planning on like staying with the honors core for next semester to try to fulfill those requirements, but the core requirements are different for a BA and a BS. And so I was wondering like how you.
Well, there's some overlap. There's some overlap, right? So science classes, I do know what you're saying. So with the Bachelor of Science, you don't have to take as many humanities, right? Or fine arts. So you want to be careful unless you just really enjoy, those things, and you do want to use a general elective. And again, honor students have more wiggle room. They have the ability to play. So if you found a course that wasn't necessarily helping you check something, put a check in a box, you could do that. But I feel like there's enough overlap. Of course, I don't know how much AP credit you came in with, right? And that does matter. So if you feel like you've checked off a lot of those boxes, then for me, just know you have a number of elective hours that you can take. I didn't really put that breakdown on the screen, but it can be like 24 to 30 hours of elective. So don't feel hesitant or like it's a waste of time to choose a course just to explore. What are you thinking about?
So I'm looking at biology, psychology, biological anthropology. Those are like the main three, but there's some like other ones in there that are like kind of possibilities, but mainly those three.
Are you in cultural anthropology this semester? Have you taken that? So, I can see so biological anthropology would work for psychology, and the biological anthropology in terms of science, but it wouldn't necessarily work for you if you're doing biology, right? But still, we see students who take classes, right, to see what it is like, test the waters. You don't want to do it too much. You want to, chip away at it a little bit at a time. If you're exploring, give yourself the freedom to do that, is my advice. I do think there is some overlap. Sometimes, so all students on the college scholars, doesn't matter if you're BA or BS, track 1 or track 2, you have honors colloquium requirements. I encourage you to think hard about which class would be right for you. If you like history, that could be the way to go, but I have heard that those classes demand a lot of reading. And so you have to think about what other classes you have on your schedule. and you want to make a good decision about how you're going to manage your time. There might be others, like cancer. I'm not sure what colloquia courses are being offered next semester, but there might be some that are of interest. And that's one way to take a class that, you're straddling that line where you're not taking anything that wouldn't count for you. But at the same time, you have prerequisites. You have classes you need to take for med school, right? And MCAT prep. Nikki can talk to us about that. But you want to keep those in mind. And I'd like to stay in touch with you. So we have some resources that show you what classes those are. But if you do you have credit for psychology?
I'm in honors general psychology right now.
So, an upper level psychology class is recommended for the MCAT. There's a social science section on that exam. So you could take abnormal psychology, social psychology. And so there, we have pre-med. That's another layer for your map, right? So you have to plan for those classes as well. And that would be a meaningful course for you to put on your spring schedule. And I don't think that would be overwhelming, especially if you're in honor psychology now. I'm going to put Nikki on the spot. Nikki, have you had any psychology upper level?
Yeah, I took honors. Well, no, I didn't take upper level. I took honors general psych freshman year. Who do you have, just out of curiosity?
Mitch Brown.
I had Ditzfeld freshman year, and it wasn't super bad, but I haven't had any upper level psychology because I switched to engineering. So I'm very focused in my course schedule, and most of my med school stuff is my science electives with biomedical engineering. So.
Right. So, engineers, it's pretty black and white, not a lot of wiggle room. And, it depends on what came before college. But, to determine the level of difficulty and if you're ready and if it sounds like something you'd like to do in the spring, you can always reach out to the faculty and see if they could share a syllabus or be willing to, tell you what does the content of the class include. And you always want to size it up with what other classes you're taking with your schedule, right? You don't want to overwhelm yourself. But we can carry on the conversation if you're looking for some options. I'm going to put my email in the chat so we can meet up maybe one-on-one if you would like. So that's a good question. Some folks are, worried about taking something that won't count, but I don't think you should worry so much about that. Especially if you're exploring, you've got to be deliberate about taking classes that fulfill your curiosity. And all three of those areas will, I think be useful for med school. So you just have to find what kind of lights you up, makes you want to go to class. Because some people, I should major in chemistry, and sometimes that going to class is like pulling teeth. So you need to find something that really means you'll enjoy your 4 years here at the U of A. So at the U of A, here we are.
Other questions? I see Anthony wants to know minors, so he could use that tool, right? The what if tool in UA Connect to see what minors are the best bang for your buck with things you already have, right?
That's right. So that our other two participants, they were looking for a good minor to add to what they already have in mind for the major. So the what if tool is good for majors and minors, everything that we offer. And then, always use that in conjunction with your catalog, the section of the catalog that correlates with that major or minor that you're looking at. There can be variation, and that's another reason why checking in with your academic advisor is key, because they just know some of the nuances that, we're not a huge university. We're not like 60,000 students, but we're plenty of students and lots of departments. And, sometimes it's hard to keep up with all those details. So always check in with a person in your college, your academic or faculty advisor, so they can make sure that you've made a good decision and that you're on the right track.
Any other questions? No.
Thanks for your attention. It was a good hour. So know that you can follow up with me. I developed this presentation on academic mapping. I've done it for a few years now, actually even before I came back to the university. So I'm happy to help. And then with career, sometimes Louise and I meet with students together if that becomes necessary. But, we complement, I think our work complements each other so that, we can just help you guys go as far as you can. We want to see our students just go to the moon if that's where they want to go.
Absolutely.
I think we can help you get there.
All right then. If we are no more questions, going once, going twice. Okay.
Have a great afternoon,
Thank you
everybody.
guys for joining us.
Pass on the word and teach your friends how to do this.
Yeah, we'll all be pros.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks to the ambassadors.